Welcome back, true believers and all you spectacular Spidey fans, to another really exciting episode of Spider-Man PS4 101. And today is the biggest day that you could possibly imagine for the City That Never Sleeps DLC, because we got a huge info bomb relating to the last chapter of the pack with Silver Lining. And not only did we get a brand new trailer for this DLC pack, but of course, as usual on PlayStation Blog's website, we did receive a huge update about what the pack will entail, as well as the 3 new suits of the game, and of course the comics that the story is based off of. And I'm gonna break everything down for you guys right now, so let's get into it. So as I just said, the PlayStation Blog website did in fact post a huge update relating to the last chapter of the City That Never Sleeps DLC pack of Silver Lining, fully describing what the story will hold for this particular chapter. And if you do go on their website, it says Silver Sable is back in the action pack conclusion to Marvel's Spider-Man The City That Never Sleeps. The deadly mercenary is back to reclaim her stolen Sable International tech and gear from the city's thugs. But with Police Department Captain Yuri Watanabe on administrative leave after her controversial efforts against crime boss Hammerhead and bigger threats on the horizon, Spider-Man must rely on unlikely allies to keep the city safe from impending calamity. So yes, just like we predicted in previous videos, Silver Sable is indeed going to be the main character relating to the Silver Lining DLC. And alongside of this, given what the description of Silver Lining just said, Yuri Watanabe is apparently off on administrative leave given what she did to Hammerhead within Turf Wars. So if Yuri is going to be absent during the majority of this pack, I can definitely see some form of a Wraith post-credit scene popping up at some point during the ending of Silver Lining, which I'm really excited to see be played out if that is indeed the case. So moving on from the main story aspect of Silver Lining is indeed new crimes and challenges. Wrap up the post-launch downloadable content with exciting missions featuring Silver Sable and her hoverjet, and confront Screwball in a new series of challenges from the prankster supervillain. Protect citizens from a unique enemy type and thwart new and upgraded crime types. So given everything that we went through during the heist and Turf Wars, it's great to know that we are indeed finally going to defeat Screwball within the Silver Lining DLC, which definitely reassures my hype for this pack. And adding on to finally taking out Screwball as part of the side missions for this DLC, it's really interesting to see that there are indeed going to be quote-unquote upgraded crime types within the city. And even though I personally like the side activities that were throughout the heist and Turf Wars, I'm really excited to see what these new types of side missions are going to be. But of course, no DLC pack would be complete without some alternate suits to go along with it, and we have indeed received our 3 new suits for Silver Lining within this new update on PlayStation's website. So the website states fresh suits and collectibles. Get 3 more suits for Spidey's collection, including Peter Parker's suit from the Columbia Pictures and Sony Pictures animation films Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Collect even more trophies from new tasks that'll test Spider-Man's superhero skills. So yes, it was pretty obvious that we were going to receive new trophies within this last piece of DLC, but what I was not expecting is this particular choice of suits. And looking at the images that you're seeing on screen right now, we do in fact have the Spider-Man from Into the Spider-Verse, which I do think is really cool to help promote the movie, as well as Cyborg Spider-Man and Dr. Aaron Aikman. Now I will be frank with all you guys, I do think the suit selection for Turf Wars is much more of an improvement compared to what these suits are for Silver Lining. Now out of all these costumes, the Dr. Aaron Aikman suit is indeed my favorite because I do think it has a very distinctive look to it, which makes it pop out even more throughout the other suits that we already have within the game. As for the other 2 suits, I'm not too big of a fan of Cyborg Spider-Man, even though it is really cool to see his giant Terminator-like robot arm on his left side of his body. I'm not personally going to be wearing this anytime soon within the DLC. And I know this might be a bit of a divisive opinion for you guys, even though it is what I personally think about this suit, but I'm not too big of a fan that the Into the Spider-Verse costume is indeed within the game. Like I just said, I do think it is a great idea that Insomniac put this costume within the game to help cross-promote the movie, but basically it is just another basic classic suit for Spider-Man to wear, and honestly, I do think they could have switched that out for something else. Now, in my personal opinion, I do think that the Into the Spider-Verse suit is a great choice, but I do think a good way to change it instead of making it just another classic suit would be making an animated version of the advanced suit. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there is a scene during one of the recent trailers which shows a huge array of Spidey costumes from a multitude of Spider-Man comics. And as you see within this one shot featuring Spider-Gwen, at the very top right of the picture is an animated version of the advanced suit from Spider-Man PS4. So instead of just simply getting another classic suit and a Miles Morales suit, which is obviously not in the game since they are going to save it for the sequel, I think it would have been better if Insomniac did their own version of the Into the Spider-Verse art style with their own suit with the advanced costume. We can already see what the classic Into the Spider-Verse costume looks like by seeing the movie itself, but I do think if Insomniac wanted to put their own take on it, they should have done an animated version of the advanced suit to fully go with their own motif for the game. So even though I'm not too big of a fan that the classic Into the Spider-Verse suit is within Spider-Man PS4, I am still curious to see what its art style will look like in the full game. And yes, I am aware that some of you are upset that a certain Spider-Man suit from a particular Spider-Man movie is not within this DLC pack, but still there is a chance that we could receive standalone DLC suits within 2019. And even though that is not confirmed, Insomniac could easily just post simple DLC of costumes by themselves as packs that people could download for a certain price within next year, and I do think that could happen, but still we'll just wait and see. So moving on with the article is new episodes of Just the Facts. Listen in on J. Jonah Jameson's fiery reactions to the events of Silver Lining in brand new episodes of Just the Facts, and read new in-game headlines and social posts from the Daily Bugle and citizens responding to the events in the DLC. So we are indeed following a pattern from the previous DLCs where we are indeed going to get more episodes of J. Jonah Jameson's Just the Facts podcast, as well as new newspapers to look at and posts on the fake Twitter account within the game. And J. Jonah Jameson has easily been one of the biggest highlights of all these DLC packs because every time he speaks I always bust a gut laughing. So given how hilarious he was within the Heist and Turf Wars, I'm really excited to see what he's going to be doing within Silver Lining. So the final part of the PlayStation blog website states Marvel's Spider-Man Silver Lining Silver Sable Comics Reading List. Insomniac Games' Ryan Smith, game director of Marvel's Spider-Man, shares some of his favorite stories featuring Silver Sable. Play Marvel's Spider-Man for PS4 today, including a new downloadable storyline, Marvel's Spider-Man Silver Lining, available December 21st. So it's great to know that we are indeed going to receive this DLC pack next Friday, and I really hope that if this story is as good as Insomniac is making it out to be, I really hope that the overall narrative can indeed end with a bang. But as to where this story is actually taking its inspiration from, we do have 6 particular comics to look at this time around, which is much bigger than the other comics that we have received in the past. So starting off with the first pick on the list is Amazing Spider-Man number 279. Spider-Man teams up. Here we start to see that there is more to Sable than just the hard-nosed leader of Sable International. She's motivated by more than money, and she teams up with Spider-Man for the first time, working together to stop Jack-O-Lantern and to fight injustice that hits close to home. So like we said in previous videos, I do think at some point during this DLC, especially seeing that Hammerhead does indeed make a return, that Spider-Man and Silver Sable will indeed team up at some point to get her equipment back in order to make Sable International permanently leave New York. And seeing how this specific comic is Spidey and Sable teaming up for the first time, I definitely think that that point is being driven home to an extreme extent. So the next comic is Silver Sable and the Wild Pack number 1. Wild Card, Wild Pack. Just the beginning of Sable's own comic book run, this adventure features Spider-Man and Sable working together and shows just how capable she is as an acrobatic fighter. She's not altogether convinced Spider-Man's help is necessary and would rather handle things on her own, which is a theme we wanted to work into our storyline as well. So as that description just said, I do think it's pretty obvious to tell that Sable will be reluctant to team up with Spidey, but as the story keeps going within Silver Lining, I do think that they might get to know each other a bit better and team up in a proper way. Moving on once again is Amazing Spider-Man number 682, Ends of the Earth. Sable debuts in number 683 with some Karian tech that inspired what we're doing in the Silver Lining chapter of The City That Never Sleeps, including a new take on a relationship with Spider-Man. So basically going off of the same themes as the previous comic, Spidey and Sable will team up to basically fight a bigger threat within the game, which is now looking like to be Hammerhead in a much more aggressive mech suit. And as for another team-up type comic is The Amazing Spider-Man number 25, Battle for Symkaria. This modern team-up between Silver Sable and Spider-Man takes them to Symkaria, where they fight against Norman Osborn and his Green Goblin army. Here we see a different take on Sable, with her people enslaved and her wild pack decimated. She's fighting for her homeland in a very real and powerful way. She and Spider-Man end up on the wrong side of S.H.I.E.L.D. while trying to do the right thing. And even though I won't repeat myself, it does seem that they are going with similar themes just like the other comics hold. Now moving on to the second to last comic that Insomniac is taking inspiration from for Silver Lining is indeed Roxanne's Mercenary in Ultimate Spider-Man number 86. Spider-Man and Peter Parker's worlds collide again as Sable is hired by Roxanne to capture Spider-Man. Here we see Sable's iron will and her somewhat flexible relationship with right and wrong, which never makes it easy for Spider-Man even when Sable is on his side. And besides this iteration of Silver Sable, my most favorite version of the character is indeed the one from the Ultimate Spider-Man video game, as well as the comics that she was based off of. And seeing how Insomniac is taking inspiration from the Ultimate Spider-Man comics is always a great thing to see. And as for the last comic that Insomniac is taking inspiration from for Silver Lining is indeed indeed her very first appearance within the Amazing Spider-Man number 265. This comic is the very first appearance of Silver Sable and the Wild Pack. Spider-Man tangles with Silver Sable International on the streets of New York, and we are introduced to Silver Sable as a tough, no-nonsense mercenary leader. Plus, there's a great storyline where lessons learned as Spider-Man help Peter Parker mend his relationship with Aunt May, a great example of the two worlds colliding again. And seeing how this is the most expansive selection of comic books that Insomniac is taking inspiration from thus far, I really do think that the story is going to be really well written for Silver Lining within the last chapter of the City That Never Sleeps DLC. As for the suits themselves, I do like that they are including a wide variety of costumes within this particular pack, but I still think that the Into the Spider-Verse suit is simply another classic suit iteration, just in an animated form, but I still think it's really interesting to help promote the movie. But with all that out of the way, guys, that's the news I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think of all the info that we received for the Silver Lining DLC, and are you personally excited for the story and the suits that are coming within this pack? As I previously said, I am very excited to see the conclusion of the story for this DLC, as well as finally being able to take out Screwball and team up with Silver Sable to take out Hammerhead. As for the suits themselves, I am a huge fan of the Aaron Aikman suit, and Cyborg Spider-Man is a really interesting one to have within the game, but the Into the Spider-Verse one, for me personally, is just another animated version of the classic suit. But as always, I would love to hear what all you guys think in the comments section down below, and until next time, true believers, stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Peace out.